A reading from the book of Leviticus. The Lord said to Moses, "Speak to the whole Israelite community and tell them, 'Be holy, for I, the Lord, your God, am holy. You shall not bear hatred for your brother or sister in your heart. Though you may have to reprove your fellow citizen, do not incur sin because of him. Take no revenge and cherish no grudge against any of your people. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. I am the Lord.'" The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
A reading from the first letter of St. Paul to the Corinthians. Brothers and sisters, do you not know that you are the temple of God and that the Spirit of God dwells in you? If anyone destroys God's temple, God will destroy that person. For the temple of God, which you are, is holy. Let no one deceive himself. If anyone among you considers himself wise in this age, let him become a fool, so as to become wise. For the wisdom of this world is foolishness in the eyes of God. For it is written, "God catches the wise in their own ruses." And again, "The Lord knows the thoughts of the wise, that they are vain." So let no one boast about human beings, for everything belongs to you, Paul, or Apollos, or Cephas, or the world, or life, or death, or the present, or the future. All belong to you, and you to Christ, and Christ to God. The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God.
The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. Jesus said to the disciples, "You have heard it was said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But I say to you, offer no resistance to one who is evil. When someone strikes you on your right cheek, turn the other one as well. If anyone wants to go to law with you over your tunic, hand over your cloak as well. Should anyone press you into service for 1 mile, go for 2 miles. Give to the one who asks of you. Do not turn your back on the one who wants to borrow. You have heard it was said, 'You shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy.' But I say to you, love your enemies. Pray for those who persecute you, that you may be children of your heavenly Father, for he makes his sun rise on the bad and on the good. He causes rain to fall on the just and the unjust. For if you love those who love you, what recompense will you have? Do not the tax collectors do the same? And if you greet your brothers only, what is unusual about that? Do not the pagans do the same? So be perfect, just as your heavenly Father is perfect." The Gospel of the Lord. Well, given the choice between a 5-star restaurant and a diner in New Jersey, especially one on a highway that's numbered, I'll pretty much always go with the diner on the numbered highway, like Route 1, Route 9, Highway 35. 5-star restaurants, all that kind of stuff, it's lost on me, right? And I've become quite a connoisseur of a couple of things up and down Route 1, Route 9, Highway 35, oatmeal and matzo ball soup. I can tell you where to go for those 2 things, okay? And one of the really great fun things about Rose in her later years is that she shared that enthusiasm with me for diners, the good one. And we have one, Rose, for those of you who haven't been around, Rose was part of our family fixture for 50 years, and she just went to heaven about 3 weeks ago. And so one of these weekends when I barrel home and I get to, I was able to get with Rose because the helper, Judith, the lady who was helping us with Judith, had to stick around extra long that night, so I was able to call. We went to the American Diner on Highway 35. It's good. It's not the Skylark, but it's right up there, you know what I mean? And no, I haven't received commercial rewards for endorsing the Metuchen Car Wash or the Skylark Diner or none of those things. And we sat down, and it's a place where there were booths like adjacent to the next booth over here, and there's like a little wall down the middle, and the couple at the next booth was having quite a row. Oh my gosh, it was not the kind of conversation you'd ordinarily expect to hear in a five-star restaurant, but in a diner on a numbered highway in New Jersey, no big surprise, okay? And we really couldn't even have our conversation while they were carrying on in the next booth. And there were, I'm telling you, there were things being said there that no matter what part of the Bible you look in, you'll never find the things that were being said at that table. And one of them finally stormed off, and the other one, it was just, it took the fun out of it, but we bounced back, and you felt sorry for this couple. And then Rose was having the questions, before she got a little bit mixed up. She would go right through the list of the family, every kid in the family, the siblings-in-law, their kids, what are they up to, every last one. And even if it had only been like a month or two, you'd still go through the whole big list. And the cousins and the neighbors and the in-laws and the outlaws. And I got to this one outlaw, and I said, I think they're in the doghouse. Well, how come they're in the doghouse? And I went on to explain it had something to do with a place where I needed a little bit of help, and they kind of stiffed me. And I said, they really stiffed me on this one. And she said, well, are you gonna get back at him? I said, well, it's tempting, but I'm not going to do it. She gave me that look. She said, as long as it's tempting. And she just looked at the place where the stormy couple had been in the next booth. And she looked at me and she kind of rolled her eyes a little bit. And she said, remember, the invitation, the call to forgive is a call to live. The call to forgive is a call to live. That when you forgive somebody, that we forgive because Jesus asks us to, but we also forgive because when we forgive, we know that we get back to full tilt. That you can't really live and live well when you're lugging around the baggage of resentment or the urge to retaliation or rehearsing the grudges. That it's not until we really let go of that stuff, and it's in one move. There's some fine points to it, but it's one basic move, and that is disavow retaliation. Don't think about it. Don't imagine it. Don't daydream about what a good thing it would be to get that final word into that person, have the last word. Forget it. And don't plot passive aggression. That's even worse than active aggression, right? The call to forgive and truly to forgive, the call to disavow every form of retaliation is a call to live. Because you know it. When you've forgiven somebody deep down, you feel this vitality. You're not lugging around the junk. You're not half alive. You're not spending your energy on self-destructive thoughts. The call to forgive is a call to live. We forgive others because Jesus asks us to. We forgive others because it also makes us feel much better, even if the other person doesn't acknowledge it. That's totally fine. The first reading today is from the book of Leviticus. Leviticus is one of the books, of course, from the Pentateuch, from the first 5 books of the Bible: Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. We don't hear from Leviticus too often. Leviticus is pretty much of a rule book. There's a little bit of stuff here and there that's the inspirational stuff from Leviticus, but not so much. It's about you can't eat this kind of food, and you can't date that kind of person, and you can't move to this kind of an area. But every once in a while, in Leviticus, you get these little snippets of inspiration like today. Don't seek retaliation. Don't cherish a grudge. It's really simple. And once again, it's the reminder that if the book is telling us to do it, if God is telling us to do it, we know that we can do it. God doesn't tell us to do things we can't do. So don't seek retaliation. Don't seek revenge. Don't cherish a grudge. Don't let that movie play over and over and over again in your head about the time that person did you dirty or left you high and dry, whatever else it is. Don't do those things. And it might seem like I have to be a supernatural saint or something. No, you don't. Every one of us, baptized Christians, has what it takes to do those two things. To stop dreaming about retaliation and to stop rehearsing the old movies of injuries in our head. To stop cherishing the grudge. And that's a whole topic. Why the word cherish? That's a beautiful choice for there. And then we know that when we forgive, we're more alive. We're just more alive. In the gospel tonight, Jesus, this is again the antitheses from Matthew's gospel. So the big picture is Sermon on the Mount, chapters 5, 6, 7 in Matthew. And then chapter 5 it starts off with the Beatitudes, blessed are, and then the Sermon on the Mount continues with the antitheses. The antitheses where Jesus says, you've heard it said that, but I say that. So it's this back and forth, them, us, then, now. Okay, easy enough. Then within the antitheses, there's two types of antitheses. One type of antithesis says, you have heard it said that, but Jesus takes it further, right? You have heard it say, do not commit murder. But I say, and Jesus is saying, that's the right claim, and I take it even further. I say, don't even get angry. That's one kind of antithesis. I think they call them the affirmative antitheses, where Jesus compares it but says, basically what you used to hear, that's a good idea. Then there's the other kind of antitheses, and we get those today. Those are the antitheses where Jesus says, you have heard it said that, but I say, no. It's not a matter of take that good idea and make it better. It's don't even go down that road. And so today we get, the first one is the revenge antitheses. You have heard it said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But hold on a second, that one needs a little bit of a flag on the play too. Why? Because when you go back to Leviticus 21:12, where Jesus is quoting an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, the author of Leviticus isn't saying, go get them, as soon as they kick back. That's not the point. The author of Leviticus is saying to people, listen, if the guy, hits in the eye, you get the most you can do in retaliation is punch him in the eye. You can't punch him in the eye and kick him in the leg and slug him in the ear. You can't do all of those things. The most you can do to someone else in retaliation is what they've done to you, right? It's not double bonus prizes for, That's the most you can do. There's not an invitation to retaliate. It sets a limit on retaliation. But Jesus says, even with that limit on retaliation, that's too generous. I'm lowering the limit on retaliation. What I'm saying is, don't even think about it. Don't even think about retaliating. When someone does something to you, do what you have to do to let go of the urge to retaliate. Disavow retaliation in all of its forms. Disavow retaliation in all of its forms. And that includes passive aggression, right? In a civilized society, we're much better at passive aggression than active aggression. You got to disavow that too. Can't do it. And then it goes on to say, pray for your enemies. Does Jesus say you have no enemies? No, he's saying you have enemies. You have people who do rotten things to you, but you got to pray for them. Because in praying for them, then you let them go, right? They no longer have power over you. When you find yourself praying for someone, and you can pray for them in any way you want. I think it's even okay, and I might be a little bit heretical in this regard, but I think it's really okay to say, Lord, please, bless them, keep them, and keep them far away from me. Huh? But if we're really hoping for something good for that person, and we are praying for that person, boy, what does that do to the control they have over us, right? The call to forgive is a call to live. Let's think of those things that get in the way of it. Sometimes we think that if we forgive another, we're affirming their bad behavior. No, we're not. No, we're not. Sometimes people think that when we forgive others that we're declaring ourselves weak and them strong. No, just the opposite, right? Sometimes people think, I can't forgive that person for what they did, especially if what they did, and that was the case with Rose getting after me about the outlaw who, if someone does something that affects someone about whom we care very much, someone we love, better they should do it to me than to someone I love, because if you do it to someone I love, then it's going to get uglier. If you do it to me, okay, I'll deal with it. But if you go after someone in my life, okay, no exceptions, Hank. Disavow retaliation in all its forms, even when it seems like righteous retaliation. There's no such thing. Disavow retaliation in all its forms. The call to do that is a call to be more alive than we were when we're daydreaming about retaliation. Friends, this thing lines up with all these challenges in February as we go through the Beatitudes and the Sermon on the Mount and the antitheses, because every one of them is saying, listen, there's stuff that goes on in life that happens to every life that's going to knock us off our spiritual feet. There's stuff that happens in life that's going to knock us out of that spiritual chillax zone where we really do feel connected to Christ. It's not a matter of if it's going to happen, it's a matter of when it's happened and when it's going to happen again. Somebody's going to do you dirty. Somebody's going to have a need for you to forgive them, or you're going to have the need to forgive somebody. What do you think? And I realize I'm speaking to a congregation of people here who've probably done a lot of this over the years, but I'd ask you just to savor the memories, to build it up, to remember a time when you forgave someone. And we don't need to say we're going on vacation with them. That's weird. That's something else. I'm just saying forgive in the sense of disavow any form of retaliation. Think of a time you did that and how much better your life got after it. Think of a time when you really let go of having to get the last word or kick back or do something else, and the serenity that brought to you. And it might take a little bit of searching, and it might take a little bit of humility. But the more that we can identify the moments when we did that and we felt the peace of Christ grow in our hearts, the more able we are to share the story with someone else who's consumed with bitterness or revenge. When we can say, listen, I've been where you are, I get it, I know what's going on, I've experienced that. I'm not telling you what to do, all I can tell you is, I know that when I disavowed retaliation and I realized I wasn't going to get back at that person, even if I could, and get away with it, I wouldn't do it. You've felt that, and you've felt the peace. The call to forgive is a call to live. The call to forgive is a call to deepen our spiritual chillax-ability. Where have you really gotten it right because of God's grace? And can savor that fact. Store it up in your heart. Contemplate it as Our Lady contemplated those good things. So that when someone needs to hear it, you can tell the story. I disavowed retaliation. I felt much more alive. Just like Rose said I would. So, chances are half the people, and you don't have that many people you need still to forgive, but a bunch of them are people you'll never see again, right? And they might even be dead. But there's just that rehearsing that goes over and over again. If I could get my hands on that one, or if I could say blah, 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 blah. Well, you're not. So you disavow retaliation, and then you don't have to waste that mental energy rehearsing it. Even if they're dead, if they're gone, if they're out of your life, if you'll never see them again. Disavow retaliation. Don't even let your head go there. And look at the difference it makes. And when you find yourself going there, just, get behind me, Satan. Jesus asks us to do it, and so we do it. And we keep an eye. Not only does Jesus ask us to do it, it has the fringe benefit. We are more alive than we were when we're lugging all that noise around. Where have you really gotten it right? And you did the work of forgiving, and logic, the wisdom of the world said, don't forgive that person, get even, blah, blah, blah. And you didn't. You just let it go. Notice the peace. So where's that been your story? You've seen it work. And maybe somebody out there needs to hear that. Who is it? Let us pray.